Welcome to the Sales Docket. I am beyond excited for this gentleman right here, and just to show you, I'm going to represent
Uh-oh.
today. Um, we have the
Wow.
CEO and founder of Groove Golf, Mark Vedete, a good friend, a fast friend, but someone that I am, just excited to have on this podcast. Mark has an incredible story, and I'd love for him to get into it. But Mark basically has a technology that the world will shortly know. I am a client and a very happy client. And I want Mark to share more about his technology because it's all about the numbers and he can talk about it. But along those lines, this is going to be a big one, Docketers, because Mark's technology, he's on the verge of becoming a global company. And I couldn't be more happy for this guy. Most importantly, he's a good dude and he's a hell of a golfer. So without further ado, Mark Vedette, thanks for joining us on the Sales Docket, man. We appreciate having you.
Thank you, Tim. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate you having
Yeah.
me. Just so you all know, this is my first podcast, so I'm happy to have been a part of the Sales Docket as my first effort here into the public forum.
This is
I'm sure
like
it's gonna
our
be first for many.
this is like our third podcast, Mark. So don't worry about it. We're still figuring this out. And I'll jump in quickly, Mark. I think in our past couple of podcasts, Tim's also he's mentioned kind of this side hustle to young professionals, like do your day job, but keep an eye out for that entrepreneurial kind of piece within you. And I think this is so. I mean, your story is going to be so powerful for younger sales professionals as they're looking at their track and career and what they can do and what's open to them. So I'm super excited about this. I was hesitant at first because I'm like, no, we've got to stick with the legal industry and we're trying to do this. But you know, I think this is going to be just an incredible podcast. So super excited. Really nice to meet you. Any friend of Timmy's for sure is a friend of mine. So let's kick this off.
Yeah,
Kick it off with your background. You'd
yeah.
love to hear a little bit about your
And
story.
tell a little bit about the story, Mark. 6 years in the making for Groove Golf and getting to a point where you're at and some of the ups and downs that you had and to the point where, things are looking a lot better. Please share.
All right. So Mark Vedette. I'm from originally New Hartford, New York. I grew up playing golf my entire life. So I've always loved the game. I wanted to do it for a living, like all young kiddos. I can remember as a 8, 10-year-old building a little putting green in my backyard, and that's all I would do all night was chip golf balls. So I just really love the game. It's something that spoke to me, and I played it a lot with my uncle, played it a lot with my grandfather, and ultimately, played a ton of golf with my dad as a junior high schooler. So was fortunate enough. I got a college scholarship, played Division I golf at American University, where I captained my team for a couple of years. And that was, again, that was my goal as a high schooler. Can I get to a point where I can play at what I thought was, the highest level, play at Division I golf, get a scholarship, compete against the best kiddos my age, and get a great education. There was a couple of opportunities. I landed at American University, and maybe serendipitous because the golf business that we've developed, although it is a tech-based business, a software-based business, it revolves around fitting a golf club. Um, my college coach, Wade Heinzelman in Washington, D.C., one of the very finest golf club fitters
No, Wade.
in
Yes.
in the world. And yeah, and so your brother and you we all know him. He's the best of the best,
Yes.
and it has a unique set of skills that allows him to understand the golf swing, understand the mechanics of the mechanical properties of the golf implements, the shafts, the heads, and then be able to quickly diagnose and recommend. And that is really the baseline of our system, is that we had to be able to measure the athlete. We have to be able to then match the athlete to something based on analysis quickly, and then prescribe them something that they can use that would be optimal to help them perform at the highest level. Because we all know that the more fun you have playing the game, the more often you're going to do it. And
Mhm.
I just wanted people to kind of see the game of golf through the lens that I've been fortunate enough to see it through, which was playing it at a very high level and being able to enjoy more of the social element than anything else, not worrying about where my golf ball is going to go or how many I'm going to lose today. It's really focused more around the actual experience of golf, which is going out, spending time with people you love, enjoying those conversations, and feeling like you're a better person when you get off the golf course because of it, void of all the gambling or any of the other side bets they're
Some
going on.
endos, there's always an endo.
So yeah, that's really that's the impetus. I have this this deep need or understanding to figure out to problem solve, right? And that's what most entrepreneurs are, is we're just problem solvers. We're not necessarily the smartest humans in the world. If we were, we'd be doing something completely different, like working on Wall Street and making a significant amount of money. I think the joy is that, I was very comfortable understanding how this niche industry worked. And so as I went down this path, I ended up back in grad school in 2016 and started looking at wearable technologies and started looking at how could wearables replace what we were seeing subjectively in terms of measuring an athlete. So the eyes only measure at about 20 hertz, and that's really hard to see anything that is relevant to helping to solve for recommending a golf shaft, right? Because the reality is that right now, when we recommend a golf shaft, we're recommending a golf head, a shaft, and a grip, three components using ball flight. There's been other methodologies that are, again, higher cost. You can use motion capture and you can use these other elements that are in the public marketplace, but those experience to the layperson, it's just really it's hard to either commit to spending the money, the time, or just the output, which is, am I going to be better when I leave? There's still this question mark, especially in the golf club fitting space, which we're hopeful we can kind of change that storyline. We know that if a player has the right equipment, they play better, have fun. So in grad school, looked at wearables, and started figuring out what they do. How can we measure the swing? How can we measure the swing and apply that to how it interacts with the golf shaft and the golf head, which are weights and springs, right? And how can we look at it from a slightly different lens, a full perspective of the full golf swing, not just this micro interaction of impact and impact and how the ball flew, and then try to make assumptions and drawing back to what shafts and heads were going to be most appropriate. So the deep dive led me to 2020, where I just decided I think it's just pre-COVID. I was like, I think I can do this. It's going to require me to raise some money. This sounds crazy. I looked at my wife and said, "What do you think?" We had written a business plan. We had executive summaries. We had walked down this path of flushing out the marketplace in the industry. So before we jumped, we said, is there anything else in there that we should be worried about? That's freedom to operates with Roger and with Dean Finelli. That's scanning the entire marketplace from a legal perspective to see what IP existed in certain within certain technological hardwares and softwares, and would we be able to physically build what we wanted to without encroaching on somebody else's IP? Because we're talking about an inertial sensor being in the public space at that time for almost 20 years, and being in use. So with that, we were fortunate enough, we didn't see any barriers that would stop us from doing what we wanted to do. So my wife and I, we jumped in March. We moved to Denver, Colorado. of 2020, and that's really where this process started, where I was living with my mother-in-law, building a business, building an idea. Is only an idea, and when you start down the road of I have an idea, and you raise your hand, I hope you have a rich uncle, because that idea, unfortunately, it takes a lot more time to materialize. It takes a lot more money and capital than you think, and there's a lot of prototyping that's trial and error to get to a place where we are today, which is on a stable operating ecosystem, leveraging wearables that are scalable, in a commoditized marketplace now, that our hope any athlete can now have access to what I think, again, is incredibly important to playing the game. I akin it to somebody that is going to go run a race. I would never ask somebody to go put on a pair of sneaks and run a marathon prior to measuring their foot. Brannock device has been in operation for years and years and years. We put our foot into the Brannock device. We know how wide it is. We know how long it is. And now I have an opportunity to look at a plethora of sneakers. And those sneakers, now I find the one that feels the best, fits the best, and now comfortably I can go run my marathon. Golf is the same way. We're just trying to find a Brannock device in the marketplace that allows us to go out and provide people an opportunity just to measure, and feel confident in what they're buying, because the sport's not cheap. And when we do play it, and we love it, and we're passionate about it, and we want performance improvement. And I think that's the problem we've tried to solve. That's the that's from age 0 to age 47 now. Why I got so involved and why I got so obsessed about it, I guess.
Well, I'm going to let Rapp have this question, because there is so much to unpack here, Rapp. I'm listening to Mark talk, and I got a million questions, or a million things that I want him to share, not only about his journey and his technology, but I want you to go ahead and jump in if you have any questions.
No, I just had a quick one, and we'll dive into some deeper things. But from idea to first sale, how long did that take?
6 years.
How long was that journey?
Yeah.
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 So
yeah, even more, you'd probably say, if you're really looking at the time spent and the due diligence spent, and a lot of that was, with one of my board members, John Viemeyer, that it's sitting in the first iteration is sitting and writing, and sitting and writing, and looking at the marketplace. It's a deep dive of, do I understand the marketplace, and am I solving the right problem for the marketplace? Because we all have ideas and we all think they're great, but the marketplace may not think so. And so you have to be very critical about what your idea is, and whether or not you're solving a problem that either exists or that you're making up. So yeah, that process of writing was incredibly beneficial. Putting it on paper and continuing to refine the thought, again, gave us I think a very robust understanding of what the golf market space looked like, especially this niche fitting space, which
yes.
is separate to the rest. It's compartmentalized to the rest of the marketplace. So that was an important part. I think, as we went back out to investors with that story about what we wanted to build and why we wanted to build it, it was helpful to have gone through those multiple iterations of what we thought the business would look like. And it's still changing. It's not,
Right.
It doesn't stay stagnant. You're not right the first time. And if we may not be right this week, we may continue to pivot, but, our first sale was, our first license went out last month as we went live on the App Store, which is pretty cool. So, yeah.
So like I said, there's so much to unpack. There's a couple things I want to talk about. First of all, it is proven. I use the technology, and the interesting thing about it is that what Mark hasn't talked about is the process as a golfer to get clubs fitted. It could take hours to go to a place to get your clubs fitted for you. And the technology prior to Groove Golf, I'd say, is iffy at best, right? But I met Mark and we were in Athens, Georgia for the Masters, and Mark's technology allowed me to put on a watch, and he had a phone. I was in flip flops, and we had he had a net and a simulator, and within 5 swings, he was like, "You need this driver shaft with this driver head, and this is what you need, this type of grip." And I have that driver now, and it has changed my game by far. If those of you on the podcast have never heard of American Gangster, me and Rod talk about this technology being blue magic, which is, if you didn't see that movie with Denzel Washington where he played Bumpy Johnson, where he was able to get his heroin directly from Vietnam and sell it to the people where it was the best. Mark has that blue magic. I've had friends now that have checked out the technology. We did a Phoenix trip where we were able to show these guys, 20 guys. Guys are calling Mark left. Hey, man, hey, because once you try it, it's the real deal. So I wanted to point that out. And the other thing, Mark, is can you tell us a little bit more about, what made you think about this process? Because it is amazing that I don't have to go to Dick's Sporting Good, or I don't have to go to the golf shop and spend 2 hours with a guy, sweating, hitting 100 balls. I can take 5 golf swings, and you can tell from the math, do this, do this, do this. And now I have a driver. And you have clients right now on the PGA Tour who actually have this technology and believe in this technology. Tell us more about that and, where it all came from.
Well, I think the missing link of golf club fitting has been the ability to measure the golf swing. So again, as you're saying, that the marketplace is very compartmentalized. It's like healthcare. I go to see my PCP. I go to see my cardiologist. I go to see my vascular doc. I go to see my podiatrist. None of them are sharing information though.
Right.
So makes it all very challenging for everyone to communicate about how is Mark feeling about his golf game. I think that the process right now, you see the marketplace, only about 15% of people use golf club fitting per year, right?
Yeah.
So there's 66 million people that play, only 59 million people have never touched a golf club fit. Why? Well, it's what you're saying. It's a root canal, right? It takes way too much time. It's incredibly variable. And then for a lot of people, like especially if you think about the chunk or the core demographic that are playing, they're sitting here and saying, well, it's not going to make me better. And
Right.
so they're really intimidated to go into an experience with a stranger and hit golf shots. And
Right.
so I understood that because I've done it enough to say, I get that. And now I know how you feel. But I also wanted them to understand how they would feel after the experience if they took the leap of faith. Because how I feel now is
Right.
I have confidence in my driver. I know that my irons are going to be adequate to me, and I know how far they fly. And there's all these wonderful things that the tools can provide us with. So yeah, the industry the industry needed to quickly transform itself. And with all of the technologies that were in the marketplace, we'd seen wearables being used before. There were other companies, for instance, like Mizuno, that was using a similar kind of experience, different in terms of their interpretation of how they went about measuring the golf shaft and the golf interaction. But it was there. And it was there, and I was asking the question all the time. We're seeing all of this movement in the performance side of coaching and teaching, but we're not seeing any motion in the golf club fitting side. And I think that is to me, it's the most important piece because you can impact an athlete immediately. If you get somebody to hit the golf ball straighter and 15 yards further, it's a club and a half less into a green. They've got a better chance of hitting the green.
Yeah.
And regardless, they're hitting it straighter. They're not losing golf balls. There's, I listened to the founder of Bandon Dunes, with Jerry Tart, they wrote a beautiful article about a couple years ago. And if you think about Bandon Dunes, you're heading out there this October,
Yeah,
right?
November. Yeah, November.
So Mike Kaiser wrote this beautiful article that talked about the difference between how he measured a golfer, and it's whether they lose golf balls or they don't, right? And that's what I keep thinking about. I don't lose golf balls. I walk off the course and I had fun. You think about the
Yeah.
guy that loses 14 of them, just went through $68 worth of golf balls, right? And scratching his head because
That
it
sounds like
cost him
me.
125. Yeah, that's the vast majority of people. And all I can
Yeah.
tell you is that using a sensor, we knew that we could do one thing that would immediately impact the way the athlete was interacting with the shaft. And it was, we can measure their full swing and help them deliver the golf club on time. And that's really the
Yeah.
basis of what we've done. And it's why it's different from what the marketplace has tried to do, as they've fussed with looking at various elements of the golf shaft as it pertains to the swing, or looking at, various ball flight patterns as it pertains to, face rotation and strike. All that's great, but what we know to be true is each one of us is an athlete. If you can walk, you can swing a golf club. And if you can swing a golf club, you can self-organize yourself. So the weights, the springs, and the lengths of the golf club all mean something. And if somebody's telling you that's not real, I would implore you to take a second look at that.
Yeah.
That's
So
awesome.
Mark, here's a question for you. So I think entrepreneurs are a special breed, right? Because it's just such tremendous amount of risk. But I also realize that as an entrepreneur, you are the ultimate salesperson. At the end of the day, you sold your wife, you sold your investors, right? I mean, it is ultimately your vision and passion and what you built, and you're out selling it. When you look back at this, you didn't start out as a salesperson, but you've eventually become a very successful one. Because I mean, you're a product man. You built a product, but you've sold. Is there a sales habit? Is there something that you learned early on, that incorporated it into kind of how you went to market from a sales standpoint? Any habit, any skill, anything that you've developed along the way, or any mistakes that you've made that shifted kind of the way you approach different people?
Hmm. Well, I'll answer the first part. The habit always is around not selling, but getting to know the person. If you build the best product, the product sells itself. And so for me, it's less about selling the value proposition to the public marketplace, and it's more about have I have I solved the right problem for this person in front of me? Because each person has a different pain point. As you go to the marketplace and you start talking to a golf professional versus a coach versus a general manager, they each have different ideas of how they want to use the technology, and they each have different interpretations of what the value is of the technology to them. But if you're not speaking directly to what their problem is, a general manager or director of golf, I need more money, right? A golf coach, I need time. A golf professional, can I curate an experience? Because that's what they're doing every day. Those are three very unique messages and three very unique pain points that we're finding as we go out and talk to more and more people about what we have to offer. Because, at first blush, when you think I can compress time, I'm more accurate, and now I can deliver you something that hasn't been available, a channel of revenue for you that hasn't been available for 30 years on green grass, which is selling a golf club, right?
Mhm.
It's a channel of revenue, and it's a line on your P&L each and every year that has been missing from a golf professional's toolbox, right? It's not
Yeah, no,
some facility.
you've created the ROI. I mean, I sell software, right? You have to define the gap in the marketplace and what you're solving for, and build the ROI for that to be able to sell a good product. Once
Yeah.
you've built I mean, it's the same thing with what you just did here. So it's pretty cool.
So yeah, and so that to that point, each person's ROI is different though. If Mr. and Mrs. Haberkamp keep coming back to me because I've created retention, in my performance programs, I've created ROI. If I can have that person pop by and now go out and start playing more golf, bringing more guests, buying more t-shirts, I've created ROI. If I can actually show that an investment of $3,000 into a software package and our validation kit at 2,500, if I can show that they can sell more golf clubs, create more economies of scale, create better relationships with the OEMs, my general manager is now creating more ROI for my facility. So there's these
Wow.
varying influences of what they need out of our system, and it's not a one size fit all. But understanding that and going into that conversation with a gun fully loaded is always better than not. I will say though that the only way to get to that pain point is to really start to open up the relationship and understand the customer and get to know them. You know, the game of golf, Timmy, you know, it's small.
Yeah,
It is so small. Tomorrow you can make a phone call and you can be out at Atlanta Athletic Club playing golf because you have a relationship, and that's what the game
absolutely.
is all it's all about. It's relationships, and that's what sales is all about, right? And so our whole goal is to develop relationships with people, figure out what their pain points are, and continue to drive the messaging towards that problem solution, and then on the back end of that, continuing to listen to them. I think that's step two, really, in my guesstimation, is that they start using the product and then they start thinking of other ways to utilize it or other pain points that they have. And that's where the iteration continues to come. And that's where the product development and the feature development continues to come. It allows us to continue to iterate and build to grow out the platform so it solves holistically for each one of those three people that we talked about in this ecosystem.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. Me and Mark played at a Whoopie Match Play Club, and I watched him as we went through rounds. Mark
Shout out
has a
to
net.
Hoopy.
Yeah, yeah. Shout out to Whoopie.
Yeah,
Mark,
shout out to Michael and Hoopy and all those guys that dreamed that thing up, because
absolutely.
that's the greatest experience
It
of
is the best golfing
I've
experience
ever
I've
had.
had, bar none, bar none. But I watched Mark, and it's funny. We doing the sales docket and some of the guests that we've had on. Mark has a natural gift of just being a personal person. I watched him talk to the caddies. I watched him talk to everybody, and it was about any and everything, not just about groove golf. So, I think some of that is natural. So along those lines, Mark, to get back on track, because I'm a fan, right? I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of your technology. I'm a fan of ultimately the success that you're going to have. But as an entrepreneur, can you share one secret with our audience about, you know, what it is that you would advise them in their careers, younger careers, to get to where ultimately I think that you are right now, which is owning your own thing, having your own business, and about to become extremely successful with it. Could you share, one tidbit for them on what you would advise?
Well, again, I think the entrepreneur is a unique bird, right? I think inherently we love solving problems, and I
Right.
think that's the cornerstone of any entrepreneur. Um, I do believe that for me, the problem that I was solving, I had such a robust understanding of the marketplace, not only
Hmm.
from the start, but by the time I got done with all of the work and the diligence that went into understanding the marketplace. And some of it was far beyond my capacity. That was, going out and learning more about what had existed in the marketplace prior to me, what had worked, what had failed, how did those business models, how did what did those go to market strategies and what did those business models look like from start, how did they pivot, how have they become successful. A lot of it is doing the diligence and the research in the marketplace,
Hmm.
and you gotta love that marketplace. You gotta want to be a part of that culture of that marketplace. And I I've wedged right in between the game and the professional, right? I play
Love
it and I appreciate it. So I felt like you have to be, somewhat crazy to believe that you can be the one person that's going to make a difference in the golf marketplace. You got to be crazy to think that, and so I thought it, but the reason why we've had plenty of chances to fail. There have been failed partnerships. There have been failed, there have been failed paths of development. There's been all sorts of like minutia that we've had to deal with, and you're walking into this incredibly green, and so a robust knowledge of the marketplace, a incredible set of advisors. If you do not have an advisor that you can lean on, I've leaned on John Beemeyer for 6 years now, and I can't tell you how many times I've picked up the phone and called and gotten some of the most incredible advice on how to navigate through the problem solve within the problem solve, right?
Right.
And then I think, ultimately it's to spend in as little money, prototype as much as you can, and ask the customers. And in this case, it was my friends. What do you think? Would you use this before you start asking other people for money? If you do take money, be prepared to really do whatever it takes to figure out whether you're right or wrong. I mean, I went all the way back to work at Golf Galaxy to figure out if I was right or wrong. And I'll tell you, I probably cleaned more toilets than I did fit golf clubs. But I was there, and I was scanning the marketplace, and I was watching the customers, and I was watching 200 people come through a door a day, and wondering why only a couple people were getting fit for golf clubs when you're in the greatest demo day of the history of the world. There's everything you could possibly want. So I think as you mature through this process, you understand you'd be crazy to start a business, but if you are a young entrepreneur and you want to solve problems, you start by really understanding the marketplace and understand, even if you've worked in it for a few years, dive deeper and understand the marketplace before you start investing your time and other people's money into it. Have great advisors, somebody that you can lean on and count on. I will tell you that partners are for dancing. If it's your idea, you do not need anybody else to help facilitate your idea. Go out and figure out. You're going to fail, but you're going to fail quickly, and you're going to learn quickly, and you're going to continue to pivot and move. But you do not need any help.
Everything yeah.
Love that.
Yeah, Mark, everything you just said, honestly, I mean, it's funny. So I think a couple of weeks ago we had my daughter who's now going and doing sales in the legal space. And the advice that Tim and I gave both her and her partner is just very similar to what you just said, right? I mean, when you're young, learn your industry, understand the problems people are having, the pain points. You just described that, right? You did your market research. You understood the pain points. That's number one, right? Number two is having the passion and understanding what the benefit of what you're bringing to market being. So all of those things that you just described is everything that a young salesperson, and the last piece is something I love that you just said, right? Is having that advisor. And I will tell you, every job that I ever got into, I found the best salesperson. And in my case, when Tim and I started working together, he was the smoothest. I mean, I used to follow around with him going, I could do this. I could do this. I mean, it was interesting, but it's always been something that I've done in my career is I've looked at the successful sales rep, and I've gone to them to be advisors to me. What are you doing? How are you doing it? Which is exactly what you just described. And I think that's so important for younger people is look around you, find the ones that are interested in helping you and latch onto them, gain their knowledge, give their feedback, call them up, ask them. Don't be shy of it because you only get better. And I think that's a critical piece. You just described the perfect scenario for someone coming into a new industry and how do you kick that off? Right? You don't just go blind. Learn the industry, learn the pain points, what's broken, what's not. And in our space, in the legal space, there's still a lot of broken. And your analogy of, you know, the health industry, there's point products, right? I mean, understanding where your piece and what you have to offer and how you might be able to tie everything together can benefit that end user. So great story. I mean, just spot on.
Well, and then not to cut you off from answering, Mark, but I could go on for another 45 minutes,
for a long
but
time.
you know, because I've just got one.
Our audience has limited attention spans,
But we're
that's
coming up
beside
on
the
the
point.
top of our hour, and we haven't even asked our final question. But before I ask that, Mark, did you want to comment on what Steve had to say at all? And if not, let me know.
Yeah, no, I look, that was a great wrap up and cliff notes. That
Wrap
is,
up.
yeah, that is,
No pun intended, rapper.
yeah, that's
He's
pretty good, right?
He's good.
Yeah. There's no secret sauce, right? It is just there is a blueprint to success. You listen to it on podcasts, you hear your all-time greats talk. You hear the Steve Jobs, you hear, in our world, the tech world, where you're listening to the Jeff Bezos, they talk, and it's the same. There is a path. There is a path that you can forge, but understand that it is not one of ego. It's one of a child's like mind. It's one of being open to criticism. It's one that is, open to being wrong sometimes, right? And that's where that's where you find your greatest advocates. Your families, your mentors, even your first clients. You can find some salvage in those folks, to keep going, because at the end of the day, I joke, don't start a business, go somewhere else. But the other piece of the puzzle is that you can't measure whether a person has the level of competitiveness or grit that it's going to take. And this thing you'll figure it out if you keep going down a path. If you're stubborn, and as stubborn as I am, and maybe that's my superpower, is that I'm just stubborn because I don't want to lose. You'll figure it out, but that's the grit that a lot of people talk about. And through that, if you're open enough, you're going to learn a lot about yourself, and you're going to learn a lot about how to manage others and how to align around with others, to get the absolute best out of yourself and others along the way. And so, but those key pieces, those key points are critical path to being successful.
So,
What's your last question, Tim? Come on, bring it to me.
there's a couple last
ready.
questions, but things I have to say. One, we're gonna get you on the Tech Pod, so I'll make that introduction so you get on the Tech Pod, because I think having this is your first podcast, knocked it out the park.
Yeah.
The second thing is that, and I just lost my train of thought, which is weird, but
We're gonna play golf in a month.
we'll definitely play some golf, and the final question, and hopefully the second question will come back to me, is, and I think you might have answered this, Mark, earlier on. What was the deciding moment in your career and what you were doing that made you make this pivot? And you've used that word quite a times, that made you pivot and say, you know what? I have this idea. I'm going to do X right now. What was that moment that made you make that move from, whether it was Golf Galaxy or playing golf, to I'm going to run this business and try to create this technology to help people?
I worked in a biz dev capacity for 14 years, and I was in grad school. I was doing all sorts of cool things to support sales growth and marketing efforts. I felt like a lot of what I was talking about, I knew it was right, and I stepped into the CEO's office, and I said, I heard your hairy audacious goal is X. I think we can achieve it by doing Y, and it's a simple pivot for your sales reps. And
Mhm.
here's how I would approach going about that process. Are we aligned? And there was no alignment. And then there was a phone call to the top sales rep in the company. And that phone call was, hey, I got Vedette in the office again. He's got a high flying idea. I just want to let you know, here's what he's thinking. And as it turns out, the rep was already implementing what I was suggesting. It just wasn't being implemented at scale.
Mhm.
Um, and so at that moment, I said, I think I can do this, but I have to find, again, I have to find the industry and I have to find the problem that I am so wildly passionate about that I can't see myself ever quitting on figuring out how to solve the problem. And that's the key, I think, is that, again, you've got to be as much crazy as smart to do this kind of thing. Because, 95% of these businesses, they fail.
Right.
And it's not out of effort or out of great ideas. It's just you've got to really dig your heels in and figure out if you're wrong, that mentor is going to tell you you're wrong, and you should probably pivot and move on and go in a different direction. But if you've done your diligence and you're right, and you're right because now you're prototyping and you're seeing the response from people, and like your interaction with us and your experience and Rogers, it's just there's pure joy when you leave us, and then when you go out and play with the product that we've built and developed, there's pure joy.
Yes.
That gives me joy too, because again,
Yes.
my whole goal was to be able to help people play the game and see the game the way I played it. And I think this is just a critical part of how people can interact with the game of golf. The game of golf, it's for all intents and purposes is incredibly healthy with the growth that it's had. But I can tell you this, typically there's more people that leave the game per year than that join the game. And
Wow.
if we don't do a great job of helping people play the game better and so they can have more fun, they're going to stop spending money in the industry. And we're not asking them to go out and buy more golf clubs to be the elixir, but we are saying, hey, go measure yourself. And maybe there's something else in that ecosystem of golf clubs. There's all sorts of different paths to buy, purchase, and go. You don't need the biggest, brightest, best. You don't need year 2026 product. Tim,
Yeah.
2022 is very good too.
Right.
So
You
I
got
think
that blue
at the
magic, man. You got that
yeah,
blue magic.
that's what it's about. We want to give it to everybody so so they feel better when they go out and play and have confidence to go out and play their best game. And even if it's only a shot or two or five or 10, it keeps them coming back and it keeps them retained into the game so we can continue to grow it. Because I do believe in my heart of hearts, beyond my love for competing in it, I love the actual experience of going out, whether it's with friends or with strangers, to share something that's so unique, which is, a 4.5 hour walk, and it's life. And
Yeah.
that's, you
All
can't
right.
ask for any better
Love it.
sport than that, bud.
I remember my question. My question is before you get too big, I need you to promise that whether it's a year or two down the road, you will do the sales docket again. That was my question.
Oh, yeah, of course.
All right.
Like,
So I'll let
can I come on? Let me come on, just a weekly check-in with Vedette, see how he's doing.
listen, anytime, bro. Anytime. This was awesome. I can't thank you enough. I'm thrilled at how this went. I knew it was going to be good because of you, and I'm so happy and so proud of you. And I just know this is going to be a good thing. Wrap. I'll let you kind of wrap it up if you
No,
want. You
no,
know.
this was great, Timmy. It was a great pivot on our side. But Mark, it's just an amazing story. And, as someone who was never an entrepreneur, like who was always scared of the risk, and I had a fan, you're like my heroes, just to let you know. Like anybody who's just gone out and done something like this and taken that risk and has been successful, I love those stories, and I think our audience is just really going to love this. So really appreciate you taking the time today, for sure.
No, my pleasure, guys. Thank you for having me. Um, Timmy, thank you for all the
Awesome.
support. I love you, bud, and
It works,
appreciate you.
man.
So,
It
yeah,
works.
thank
It
you.
works.
Trust me, if it wasn't working, I wouldn't support it.
Well,
You got me
All right, I'm gonna
35
stop
yards
recording.
and I hit it straighter, so I'm good, baby. You got all the support. I need you to work on my irons game now. I need you to get those on, get the technology set up for that.
yeah, we're in beta right now, so
Awesome.
by the time we'll be back down at PGA Show January. So by
Okay.
then I think we'll feel confident enough where we'll be able to do a real cool thing. We'll fit you for a full bag of 5 swings. How about that?
Love you, my man. Love
Might
you.
have to join Timmy. All
Love you
right,
too,
guys.
guys. See ya.
I'm gonna stop recording.
Thanks so much.
Thanks all.